In today's video, I'm going to share with you some terrible etiquette mistakes with guests. Things you do that can embarrass you, make you look bad, and even make people talk badly about you after they leave your house. Hi, I'm Juliana Santiago, an etiquette consultant. Welcome to the Etiquette and Protocol channel. And in today's video, we're going to talk about things that hostesses do that often make them embarrassed and they don't even realize it. So I've selected here the main mistakes and slip-ups that I don't want you to make. Situations that can make your guests feel embarrassed, uncomfortable, and make them consider your hosting bad, end up speaking poorly of you, and think your reception and hospitality aren't very good either. So come with me in this video and I'll show you the main etiquette mistakes. To get started, we need to talk about you not being ready to receive your guests. Everything needs to be in order when you're going to have someone over. So your house needs to be organized to welcome a guest. It's ideal that you already have some food or snacks ready for when your guest arrives, so they can immediately feel welcomed, especially in more intimate, smaller gatherings. It's also a good idea to set the table if possible. So these details will make a difference in making the person feel welcomed. Notice that you organized your home to welcome that group of people or that one specific person. But there's one detail that many people forget, which is that you also need to be ready to welcome your guests. So it's no use welcoming your guest with a towel on your head. Of course, that might sound a bit exaggerated, but imagine your guest arriving at the scheduled time as agreed, and you're still getting ready, still doing your makeup. So ideally, you should be ready 20 or 30 minutes before your event, before the scheduled time, so that you can also feel more relaxed and not be so rushed. And when your guest enters your home, they get the impression that everything was prepared to welcome them, including you're also ready there to play the role of hostess. Another important point, now talking about when the guest arrives at your home, is leaving the guest without a comfortable place to sit. Especially when we talk about smaller events, more intimate gatherings like a dinner or something where there will be a table with a seat for everyone, the ideal is to have a place there for each of your guests. So if you're going to have a dinner and you want to set the table, that table needs to match the number of guests. So there's no point in setting a table for 6 and inviting 10 people, because where are you going to seat the other 4? That doesn't make any sense. That's why it's important to always think about a style of reception that makes sense for the number of guests you have. If you have a table, for example, with 6 seats and you want to host 10 guests, sometimes it's a good idea to create a different reception dynamic. So in this case, a dinner won't be very effective with a set table, but you can create, for example, a cocktail party, serve some appetizers, offer some cheese and wine, which will work really well, especially at larger events where you won't have a specific place to seat each guest. And of course, even if the set table doesn't actually happen, it's also important for you to pay attention to the other spaces. So the guests will be in the living room. Does everyone have a comfortable place to sit in that space? Will the space you have be enough for everyone? There's nothing worse than arriving at a place and realizing there's no spot for you. It even gives you the feeling as a guest that you're bothering someone, or that maybe they weren't expecting you, and then you show up and kind of have to change the whole dynamic. So that creates discomfort for the guest, and we want to avoid that. Always think about the dynamic you're going to create when you host. In your home, the space you'll have, and whether there will be enough room for everyone to be comfortable. When the guest arrives at our event, ideally you should, of course, greet them, right? They will arrive and you will welcome that guest. But then we also need to integrate that guest into the group. So it might happen that you, for example, invite people from different groups, people who don't know each other. And then it's important. And at that moment, the one who plays the role of integrating people is the host. So the host needs to introduce people, play this role of interacting with the guests, building these relationships. That's very important. And a tip I give you in this regard is to think about people who might have topics and interests in common. So let's say you have a friend who has already lived for many years in Rio de Janeiro, right? I'm from Belo Horizonte, so let's suppose I have a friend who has lived for many years in Rio. And then I have another friend who is now living in the city of Rio de Janeiro as well. So that's something they have in common, right? One has lived in Rio for many years, and the other is currently living in the marvelous city. So thinking about topics that can bring together guests who don't know each other will be very positive. And this will also help you a lot in your role as hostess, because you will be seen very positively by your guests. Since you played this role of bringing people together and interacting, it will also give you the freedom to move around among the guests. So you won't be stuck with just one person because you feel like you have to give them all your attention all the time. Always remember to make a good introduction. So having some control and knowledge about introduction protocols will help you a lot. So always remember that in social settings, you should say the woman's name first and introduce her to the man. Also, when it comes to older people, they should be named first as well because they are people of greater importance. Here, I'm speaking in a casual way, but basically this is about precedence. And in social settings, precedence is given to older people or secondly to women. But of course, much more than just introducing and saying each other's names, you need to bring up a common topic. This actually becomes even more important than just doing the introduction routine, like Maria, this is João, João, Maria. No, so it's interesting for us to have control over a common topic that can connect people. Not offering anything to drink right when someone arrives is also another mistake, and people often forget this detail. Whenever the guest arrives, ideally, of course, you should greet them, introduce them to the people there, and of course, offer them a drink right away. Of course, you're not going to ask the person what they want to drink. You need to see among what you have prepared and organized what your guest would like to choose. So if it's a wine reception and you've prepared white wine and red wine, there's no point in asking the person what they want to drink because sometimes they'll come to you and ask for a beer or a whiskey and you won't have it. So always offer options to your guests. Maria, how are you? What would you like to drink? Would you like a white wine, a red wine, some water, juice, or a soft drink? What can I get for you? And of course, if the person doesn't want alcoholic options, don't insist. And also don't keep asking them why they aren't going to drink. Sometimes they're going through a health issue. Sometimes they're pregnant and don't want to share that with people. Sometimes they've made a promise and also don't want to share something so personal with others. So make sure people feel comfortable not drinking alcohol as well. Serving food without checking for possible dietary restrictions of your guest is also another big mistake. Right when you invite someone at the moment of the invitation, it's a good idea to check if the guest has any dietary restrictions. You can mention the menu, the main dish, or the idea and style of the gathering you want to organize so the guests can understand what the dynamic of the event will be. So if I'm going to host a dinner, it's best to mention right at the time of the invitation that it will be a dinner. And also check on the main dish. Then you might ask me, Juliana, but my main dish is pasta. Okay, but the person might be allergic to gluten. So if you're going to have a dinner or a pasta night or a wine and cheese night, it's a good idea to let people know what your plan is, what's going to happen at that event. And then at the end, you can ask your guest if they have any dietary restrictions. A lot of times people talk about invitation protocols, and some people think it's silly or unnecessary, but it's not. Asking important questions at the time of the invitation will help you guide your reception and will also give you more confidence when presenting the food, because there's nothing worse than being in front of someone and finding out, for example, that they don't eat meat. And then you didn't know that. Many times people become vegetarians or for some reason are not eating a certain food at the moment. So it's always a good idea to clarify what our reception plans are, briefly mention the menu, and check for possible dietary restrictions. Of course, when I say to check the menu, there's no need for you to go over every single dish that will be served. But of course, highlighting the main ones will help you a lot. Being on your phone while a guest is present is a very serious mistake. I believe that in most of the videos I make here on the channel, I end up pointing out some mistake related to cell phone use. Nowadays, it's becoming more and more common for people to normalize cell phone use. So it's constantly checking your Instagram feed, checking notifications on WhatsApp. Hold on, if you intend to welcome someone to be with a person, forget about social media for a while. If you want to take pictures or even post and record that moment, take the picture, post it later. Let's enjoy that company. Let's live that moment there with those guests. Leave social media for later, because we know that this moment, this time to share with other people is something very special. And today, there's nothing more valuable than dedicating some time to someone. So if you set out to do this, being on your phone doesn't make any sense. Ignoring the room temperature is also another big mistake. And here I really mean the environment itself. If you're someone who gets hot easily, and sometimes at home you have air conditioning and you're used to setting it really cold, be careful. Are your guests feeling comfortable? Are they feeling okay? Is that normal for them? It's important to always make sure the reception is pleasant for your guest. And here, we're talking about a reception that's very cold, but also in an environment that's very hot. So if you're going to host, for example, on a very hot day, be prepared to welcome your guests, have a fan, air conditioning, or sometimes host in a more airy place, because that will definitely make people more comfortable and at ease at your event. There's nothing worse than feeling too hot in a place or being too cold. Exposing problems or arguing with your spouse during a gathering is totally inappropriate and causes a lot of discomfort for everyone present. Not to mention, it makes you look really bad. So, if something happened during the gathering that your spouse did that wasn't nice, if your husband did something to you that made you feel offended, don't badmouth him in front of other people, not even on the side, in little groups. Sometimes you gather a few friends and start exposing him. Speaking badly about someone close to you in front of other people isn't polite, and it's important for us to be aware of that. Now, one thing I want you to check right now is if you're subscribed to the channel. Have you already subscribed to the channel? Have you already liked this video? Do you like the content I share? Then check your subscription and make sure to keep following. Cleaning dishes, tidying up the house, organizing the house while your guests are still at the reception is also not a good idea. And I say this from experience because this is a mistake I myself have made when I didn't know much about hosting at home. I used to think I needed to organize my house right in front of my guests, that it might even show them that I was a good hostess. But actually, what it tells your guest is that you want them to leave. When someone starts tidying things up right in front of us, it gives the feeling that the event is over. When we attend a big party, such as a wedding, and people start turning on the lights and cleaning up, doesn't it give you the feeling that the event is over? That also happens in our house. That's why we need to be calm and understand that the event starts when the first guest arrives and it ends when the last guest leaves. And then when the last person leaves, you can start organizing your house. And I know there are some things that might seem simple, but I'm sure that if you adjust them during your reception, you can even make the process of hosting easier for yourself. And I'm speaking from my own experience because before I learned about protocols for hosting at home and the right information on how to host properly, many times I thought I was doing things the right way, but I stumbled a lot. I made countless mistakes, and I don't want that to happen to you. That's why I'm inviting you to join my class about hosting at home. If you're interested in joining this completely free and online class, click the link in the description below, and I'll share this class with you. I'm sure you'll learn a lot. Not thanking your guests for coming or not saying goodbye is also not polite. Of course, after the guest leaves, it's very good manners for the guest to send a message the next day, whether written, an audio message, or make a phone call thanking you for the invitation and the moment you organized and prepared. But during the event, do you make it clear to your guest that you are happy to have them there in that situation? So always reinforce this so the person will feel very special. Don't forget to say goodbye to your guest as well. So, sneaking out quietly to go to bed and leaving your guests there won't be nice. Always remember to stay with your guests, be there with them, thank them, and say goodbye. There's no point in leaving without giving them that attention. And it may not seem like it, but there are several other things that show you don't have class. That's why I already made a video talking about this specific topic. The video is right here next to me, and I invite you to watch it right after this.